The Housing Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by the native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place is home.
And item number 5 on our agenda today is approval of the minutes. So we're looking for consideration and approval of the minutes for the Housing Commission meeting held on June 27th, 2024. We're looking to approve the minutes from that meeting, and I will look for a motion if someone wants to give it.
I move to meeting minutes from June 27th.
Also, we have a motion from Commissioner Flores. Is there a second? A second from Commissioner Adobe. Any further comments or concerns? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. The motion passes. Thank you so much. Item number 6 on our agenda today is action and discussion items. 6A is a discussion of the bond-funded homebuyer assistance program. This is a discussion item, and I'd like to try and set expectations on timing with commission members and the public if they're engaged in this meeting. We're hoping to have the presentation and questions, comments last no more than 60 minutes, so we can make sure to get to other items on our agenda. So I'll pay attention to that, but just kind of so you know our timing for this item today. And I will turn it over to Jessica Donahoe to do the presentation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Donahoe. Today I'll be presenting to you on the proposed bond funding homebuyer assistance. And as we said, you could please hold all your questions or comments until the end, just so we can get through the presentation and address those.
Oh, true. Oh, that's much better. Thank you. Sorry, yeah.
So on this slide, we'll dive into the bond first. As many of you remember, in November 2022, Prop 442, the housing bond passed with an overall amount of $20 million. $7 million of that is set aside to be used to assist eligible first-time Flagstaff home buyers with a down payment and closing cost assistance for purchase of a home with Flagstaff city limits. And then Community Home Buyer Assistance Program, or CHAP program, launched in 1998 to aid middle-income households. And its goal is to provide one-time benefit to eligible households to help cover upfront costs like down payment, closing costs, to qualify for those who qualify for mortgage but lack necessary cash. And this is created as a revolving loan with general fund dollars. And our purpose today is to review the proposed framework we set out later in the presentation and get feedback on the new program features. Apology. Yeah.
Different.
Apologies for having continued technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience.
Which was. Just gonna be trying.
You all see the housing commission brainstorm slide? I'll send you. I'll send it.
There it goes.
As you may recall, we came to you in January to get some ideas of what you might like to see with this bond funded program. The items in green are already implemented with CHAP currently and will continue to be. The items in yellow are what we are incorporating or have considered. The items in red are out of our control. And items in white will be looked at at a later date. So we did look into the forgiveness of down payment assistance and purchase of existing units to create permanently affordable homes, as well as taking payments rather than a larger payoff at the end of the loan to amortize with interest. And we also carefully consider the maximum NOI. So thank you all for your feedback. And then overview our current CHAP eligibility parameters. There is a requirement to be a U.S. citizen or legal resident, a first-time buyer, meaning you have not owned a home for 3 years, home buyer education course and housing counseling, an owner occupancy requirement. You must rely on the residence as your primary residence, and an income limit of 125% AMI, which is $122,175,000 for a household of 3, for example. The home must be purchased within city limits, and the applicant must have a current address in the Flagstaff Metropolitan Planning Organization boundary, which I have on the next slide to show that map. As you can see, the FMPO boundary goes to Kachina, Mountain Air, Belmont, Stony Park. And then these are also a review of the current CHAP criteria. You may remember in fall of 2023, we upped this assistance amount from $15,000, a 3-to-1 matching, to now $40,000, 8-to-1 matching, with a maximum of $5,000 of household funds match. So for example, if you come with $4,000, you'll get that match times 8, $32,000. And then the loan must be repaid based on shared appreciation formula, the percent of assistance. And this is triggered at 3 events: at time of sale, when the home is no longer owned or occupied, or when you refinance with cash out. And then we have the maximum ratios, the 35% housing ratio. That's what you pay for your mortgage and utilities. Try to keep that at 35%, the 45% debt to income ratio, and the 79% loan to value ratio. And since we've had those changes, we have seen CHAP be used more. So it was a success that we did those updates, as you can see here in 2024, and we're just halfway through the year. More than that, we've had 8 sales, 5 of those in our affordable home purchase program, and 3 market rate. So what we're recommending today is to increase the subsidy amount and maximum AMI served to address rising costs and decreasing supply, which we'll go over with more data later. And this chart here shows what's affordable to these income ranges. As you can see, a household of 4 at 150% AMI, an affordable house would be $536,000. And we use that as like the baseline for our research in the next few slides. we capped it at like $550,000 for a home sale price. So on this slide, you can see there is a lack of supply under $550,000 within city limits. This information is a snapshot in time for the month of May for each year. So as you can see, in May of 2024, there was only 23 homes closed with financing in the month of May. And then you can see on the right, the prices have went up and they've come down, and now they're starting to creep up again. For the month of May 2024, you can see that average sales close price is $400,049. And thank you to Commissioner Kellogg for your help with this. I know we were emailing back and forth asking for all this information. You really helped us tell the story. You might be wondering what's currently available. As of July 30th, there was only 29 units financeable under $550,000 within city limits. I put examples of the lowest price one, which you can see is at $275,000 one bedroom, one bath condo unit. And then below that was the highest priced one we saw in those results, which is a $550,000 three bedroom, two bathroom condo type unit. And then we'll be proposing two programs today. One is going to be an extension of CHAP with bond funds, which will be delved into with these current slides. And then later on, we'll transition into a proposed permanent affordability program. So first off, what the current CHAP proposes is first-time home buyer has not owned a home for 3 years. We recommend changing that to first-time Flagstaff buyer, meaning has not owned a home in 3 years outside of Flagstaff city limits. So we really want to attract the renters in our community so they can get into home ownership. And the residency requirement, it's currently an address in the FMPO boundary. We recommend changing that to lived or worked in FMPO boundary for 1 year. So you're attracting people that are already here, that are already working. And also the area of the home purchase, it's currently within Flagstaff city limits. It would remain within Flagstaff city limits since it is bond money. It has to go towards the city limits. And the income threshold is currently 125% AMI at $122,175 for a household of 3. We recommend raising that to 150% AMI with a household of 3, making $146,610. And then the assistance is up to 40,000, 8-to-1 matching ratio currently. We recommend raising that to 50,000 with a 10-to-1 matching ratio. And then you'll want to keep this slide in mind because we'll be asking for your opinion on this later. Currently, the CHAP loan is repaid based on a shared appreciation formula, the percent of assistance at these 3 triggering events: at time of sale, refinancing with cash out, or when it's no longer occupied. We are considering adding the option of repayment with any refinancing if there is sufficient equity in the property. And this would help with council's desire to have a revolving loan. And then we just wanted to get some scenario examples to show you like who currently is being served with the parameters and who isn't, and who eventually could change those. On the left, we have a couple who's currently eligible, who makes $88,940.80. We have an administrative assistant and a teacher with an AMI of 102%. Their purchasing power is $250,000. And on the right, we have a couple with a child who is currently ineligible, but could become eligible if we raise that AMI. They have a combined annual income of $131,000, 508.80. And we have a teacher and a department head with an AMI of 134%. Their purchasing power is $416,000. With the $50,000 assistance, that could be $456,000, which is what we're seeing is likely available to them in the market. And then we wanted to propose this idea to you because we were told to be innovative and unique. And we took your feedback from the brainstorm to look at getting more affordable units in our CLT program. This is an example of a proposed permanent affordability program that we could come up with our successful applicants, because we will go out for requests for statement of qualifications, and whoever administers this program can really help us hone in on these details. So this would be an assistance in exchange for permanent affordability, serving an AMI of 150%. And the assistance amounts, the intent is to have a minimum of 100,000 and a maximum of 200,000 with a 10-to-1 matching contribution ratio. And then this would not be repayable because it's not a loan. By taking this assistance, the person would be agreeing to make their home deed restricted or a ground lease to secure the city's investment in a permanently affordable unit. And it would enter our stock for our CLT or deed restricted units. And then our next steps are to incorporate your feedback today and our revisions of this framework, and then attend a council work session in fall of this year. Next, go on to request for a statement of qualifications process, either this fall or winter, and then get that contract approval for the successful service provider in this winter or early spring next year. And that's my presentation. Thank you. If you have any questions or discussion.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm not sure, Adriana, if there's folks online who might have put a Q or a C in the chat. So I should say, if you did want to have questions or comments about the presentation online, if you can put that Q or C in there so we can know you're interested, then that would be lovely. Is there? No, C's or Q's. Okay. Anyone here? Oh, is anyone here in the room who has a question or a comment or feedback, discussion on this topic for staff or Jessica?
I guess could we get your feedback on this option we mentioned, then one?
So I have a question about that because I don't understand what that means. I don't know what repayment with any refinancing of sufficient equity means. I can answer that.
So currently, when so Justina Costa, director. Currently, we will allow a refinance if it's lowering the interest rate, or if essentially, but there cannot be any sort of cash out. However, if someone wanted to refinance, well, and at that refinance, at that time, we don't require repayment, right? The loan stays assigned. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I just say it weird?
Well, I mean, so now if there is a refinance with no cash out, that benefits the owner. So if their home price or home payment goes down,
Yes.
right? Or if their interest rate goes down, then you guys would subordinate and remain silently in second position.
Currently.
Yes.
What we're proposing at any sort of refinance, cash out or not, we are proposing to get our payment back.
Requiring it.
We're proposing requiring it, correct? We're proposing to you that we require it through this process and require it at that point to be repaid back to the city so that we have more of a revolving loan, more money coming in, so then we can get more money out the door. So for example, if you were to refinance for a lower interest rate, that you do have enough equity in your home, we would ask you to pay us back at that time. If you don't have enough equity in your home at that time, you would not have to pay us back. That's why it says insufficient equity. So we're not wanting to punish people for refinancing at all, but if they do have enough equity, we would definitely want that money back so that we can recycle it to another family.
I make a comment.
Absolutely, and that's what we want your feedback on.
So my concern with that would be that if refinancing without paying it back, it's the person in a better position, but then you add that extra money into it, now they're just the same off as they were or worse. But you've required it, shouldn't there be an out? I mean, I just can't see forcing someone to do it because it doesn't benefit them. Then they're not going to refinance.
So would this require, like, let's say I do have enough equity in my house and I'm just, I find a way of getting a lower interest rate. And I want to refi it, but I don't really want to cash out at that time. I just want the lower interest rate. This would require me to basically get a cash out so that I can repay the
Correct.
loan.
Correct.
At that time, to lower interest rate, which may not change my payment or benefit me in any way. It's going to discourage me from doing a smart decision of refining.
On the city side, for the program administration, what that would allow us, it would allow us to receive that money sooner than usual. And it would allow us to have that ongoing pot of money to then again help another family. So absolutely, there is a give and take. That's why we wanted to bring it to you, because it was, you know, an option of we could absolutely do what we're currently doing, it's worked. Or we could have a more predictable revenue source, essentially, of getting some of that money back when opportunity presents itself.
I just wanted to further comment. I think there's a way to possibly do it to where there's still a benefit on both sides. But it's just not a black and white, it all has to be paid back. Maybe it's a portion of it to where now they are still benefiting from it. So the city's happy, the home buyer's happy. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but maybe it has to be a formula of, you know, if that can't all be paid back, maybe 50% or 25% or something to make it. Because we obviously, these people couldn't afford to buy a house in the first place without the assistance. We don't want to stick them in a spot where they're discouraged or can't afford it.
Absolutely. We looked at a lot of different options too, and proposing these recommendations to you all, even something like a balloon payment at a certain time, decided against that because again, we don't want to burden households at any point in time with, you know, suddenly having to pay us back. The refinance option seemed like it could work, but I mean, let's talk it through. We're happy to, if any other commissioners have any other feedback on this, and we can kind of together decide on, yeah, maybe 50% like you're saying.
Are there any C's or Q's?
No.
No. So I would say if your goal is to have sooner repayment, more quickly repayment, I think this requirement works against that. I think it's exactly what Karen said. People will choose not to refinance, which doesn't meet the city's needs of repayment and doesn't help the homeowner get into a better mortgage. So I don't think it does either. Effective. Right now, if somebody wants to pay off during a refinance, even without cash out, they can. Like they can talk to their lender and say, you know, I wouldn't normally do cash out, but if I refinance instead of 150,000, 190,000, what does that look like? They could pay you off early without any penalty, right? There's no prepayment penalty, even if it's not required. They're just not forced to at this time if there's no cash out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're happy to keep it the way it is.
Well, I mean, a suggestion could be that they are required to go through a review to see if they can feasibly pay off some or all of it, but not be completely required. Because that way then, you know, there may be a situation where they all of a sudden have enough equity. It's going to take years for these people to get equity to do it. And who knows where rates will be at that time.
So for the administration of the program, it's easier to have more black and white rather than a scenario situation where, you know, you're reviewing someone's portfolio.
How about we look at capping the repayment amount so as not to increase their payment. And I mean, if they pull all this cash out, they're gonna have to refinance it. So if they don't have to increase their payment, that would benefit the city in getting a portion of it back, yet not all of it.
Review for that anyway, we would review to make sure the terms are benefiting, the terms of the new finance.
Yes. Terms of the new refinance doesn't hurt them. They reduce their payment through a lower interest rate, but then they can draw out enough cash to pay off part of it.
From a lending perspective, Karen, do you think that would, how do you think that would work?
I think I would. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, as long as you all are willing to resubordinate the difference.
And we already currently do. I mean, that's what happens when we subordinate to a lower interest. Currently, I mean, we get the subordination documents, we review all the new loan versus the old loan. And then we subordinate. So that wouldn't be anything different. I think it would just be, it's a little more challenging at that point because every situation is different.
But then again, everybody's situation is different.
Absolutely, absolutely. But then it's what percentage would you require repayment of? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Well, and how do you calculate your shared appreciation if there's a partial repayment?
and that's a fair point.
Would it solve the concern if it was just an option? Like,
Like,
are
or
you have
it's an option.
to, so it's not like different?
Like, so if you wanted to pay off now and there was gonna be an appraisal at the refinance, so now you've got your shared appreciation formula, right? So you can pay out 43,000 instead of 40,000 based on the appreciation, right? And you get that done and it doesn't harm you, your rates, your ratios are fine. The other thing to look at is your loan to value. Like if you're gonna now bump up over 80% loan to value, now you're gonna pay mortgage insurance. You maybe are refinancing to get rid of mortgage insurance. Like there's lots of benefits in a refinance and there's lots of reasons people look at that are so individually specific. I don't see how you have a forced repayment at refinance that fits all of those without harming the owner, without getting the city really what they want, which is early repayment. To me, they're like the way you encourage early repayment is perhaps they don't have to pay back all of the shared appreciation. Right? Like there's a financial benefit to paying off early. So if your home's going to continue to appreciate and you're paying back 10% of the appraised value or the value of your home at refinance, if you pay off within 5 years, you only have to pay back 5% of the appreciation or something like that, like triggers that would make it so that through a refinance, you're not sharing as much of your appreciation. That might be a way for folks to look at it and decide if it's worth it to them financially to get the city's lien released and paid back so that any additional appreciation in the future is 100% theirs. Anyone online? Sorry, I don't want it to just not include folks online too.
Any commissioners, and I'm not seeing any C's or Q's in the chat.
And you all can hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. All right. Phew. I appreciate the check-in.
So let me understand to make sure our notes are correct. So instead of doing repayment with any refinancing, the commission is recommending is to do a repayment to encourage early repayment by reducing the shared appreciation somehow
Within a time frame.
within a time frame. And mind you, just did a fantastic job presenting. These are currently just examples. They're basically guardrails of what we want the program to look like. But when we put this out for RSOQ, our hope is to, when we do select the entity that we're going to work with, our intent is to utilize their expertise in the field to kind of help us fill in some of these things. So these will be obviously the big guidelines in terms of like what the city wants, what the commission wants, what council wants. But there may be additional components that they could finalize, like we were just talking about, like figure out that kind of what that tiered structure might look like and getting rid of that shared appreciation. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But if the commission, if everyone agrees, we can absolutely take that as a recommendation for that. Sounds great.
Everyone here seems to be okay with that. Any comments or feedback from online folks? For staff to consider, is there a hand raised?
Or,
Sorry, there's vision.
There's a Steve Moses, Commissioner Milazzo.
Commissioner Milazzo, can you share with us your thoughts?
Yeah, I had a really tough time following the conversation that went on in the room. Could we get a summary put into the chat?
Fair point. Do you guys want to summarize that? I'm not online to chat that, or do you want me to?
Commissioner Milazzo, are you requesting a summary of the presentation or a summary of the recommendations from the commission?
A summary of the recommendation, please.
That's great.
And at this point, am I understanding correctly that like that feedback from the commission would go to staff? Staff would craft it because we don't have specifics, right, of what that even looks like. And then that would not come back to us, but go to council in a work session. Is that right?
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So just to understand the process, because I feel a little bad like throwing out a recommendation that then isn't fleshed out yet, because it's just thrown out there. But it's not going to come back to us fleshed out, right? It would just go to council work session as a recommendation from the commission without it being fully fleshed out. Like I know we're saying like maybe look at reducing shared appreciation. To me, that's just a concept. It's not really like, here's what we are actually recommending. It's rookie.
An option would be to, so, you know, I hear you. So an option would be to do a small working group of commissioners to kind of flesh that out before we take it to council. If you all would like to do that, we can absolutely do that. I mean, I could see it being one meeting.
I still think as commissioners, we should see the fine piece of it and approve it. I think that's
maybe coming past, maybe September, back to the commission after the RSOQ process with
Proposed program.
the proposed framework. Because we're eventually gonna have a contract with a service provider. And they will have helped to fill in a lot of details, so that would, as far as I could see, that was gonna be presented to the commission. So you're aware of the framework before the contract is approved. But the commission didn't approve contracts strictly, it would just be an in on what the program framework.
I mean, we have 30 minutes still in this presentation, like timeframe. We could try to iron some of it out today if you'd like, or we're happy to bring it back. We're trying to stay on track to kind of move this through, you know, the process and get it out as soon as possible because our current check contract is running out of money, but we're happy to.
So when is it scheduled for council work session?
So we wanted to see how today went, and then our goal is to schedule for council. I mean, council's just getting back from the session. Our goal was the end of September, beginning of October, depending on the calendar.
So could we not fit in this before that? Like if everything's ready to go to council except this one item, could you get on council work session, do whatever publishing presentation things you need to do, and then based on the conversation of the commission in September, put that in? I'm not trying to add more work. I'm just.
No. Yeah, we could definitely come back at the end of September, do a working group between now and the end of September, come back to the commission at the end of September with a final recommendation to council. And then go to council, probably it would have to be mid-October at that point. Because it would be like 2 weeks to make sure.
I have two questions. So are we as a commission not able to view things outside of formal meeting, where it's like everything that gets put together comes to all of us via email, and we have to unanimously approve it or not? Is that a possibility to avoid having to wait till our next meeting?
So the intent in talking about this specific program, we were not asking the commission for approval of moving this to council. There was not going to be a recommendation of approval or denial to council. This was going to be a discussion. And then we're going to council to tell them they have to discuss, staff proposed the program. The commission took a look at it, discussed it, added feedback. Now it's one big happy story with a bow on top. Here it is, council. Council says, yes, we like these parameters. We're going to, we're going to now ask you to put out an RSOQ, procure that respondent. We then negotiate with that respondent what this program exactly is going to look like. Because these are just guidelines and parameters that are broad and that are going to set the base city framework for what we're expecting the money to do. However, the practitioner, whoever we hire, they're going to have potentially other ideas. They're going to potentially have, and not other ideas other than this, but to incorporate into this. And so then that's what we would do in preparing actual programs for later. So this is the guidelines, the guardrails, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically, I get that. My next question is, what is the flexibility going forward? With changes and amendments to how things are framed, is that completely up to just the administrator who would oversee this, or is that who decides changes? And do we have the flexibility for changes within how the bond money is distributed?
That's a very good question. So currently, for example, their chat program, there was money that we got from city council. We awarded it to the agency to administer that funding for us. And then there's a scope of work that the agency is required to follow. There are no changes. If the city or the agency wants changes, it has to come back. We have to take it to council. It has to be a formal amendment process. And then that's how those changes get made. That's how you all did the changes to the actual chat program, January, whenever that was. And so that's what that was. That was like, we want to up the assistance amount from 15 to 40. We came to you. We had that whole conversation. You recommended those changes go to city council. City council approved it and then incorporated that, did a contract, had it signed. And then now that agency has to apply that.
So you're saying we can make amendments and changes, which is that's going to the form.
Oh, correct. I mean, until the program is set in stone, we can make any changes we want.
So then once it's set in stone, we're stuck.
We're set in stone in a contract.
It's set in stone in the contract, but we can amend that contract through a formal process.
So if there was something in these guidelines, in this framework, that in 2 years is no longer realistic, 150% AMI, 10-to-1 match. I mean, like, this is a framework, but it's not really. It's a pretty confining framework. Quite frankly, it's not going to provide assistance to eligible. We're setting eligibility. And so when that changes in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or whatever, then it would come back to commission to say the proposal from the RSOQ respondent or city staff or whomever is moving this forward wants to change it to 160% AMI. I'm throwing it out there. I don't know that that's going to change, but or we should lower the amount of assistance because we don't need that much to buy houses. Well, housing prices have gone down also from that. So those considerations would do that same process then in year 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Absolutely.
With the respondent for the RSOQ.
And if you look at the slides we presented, it says examples of proposed. So those are not set in stones right here. Examples of proposed. That 10-to-1 might change. These are just they're guardrails, but I mean maybe it's 9-to-1, maybe it's 11-to-1 on this one.
Right.
So.
But that's the permanent affordable building. Like I figure when you go out to RSOQ, you're gonna have
We're gonna do the same thing with the proposed chapter. It's going to be examples.
Like current versus proposed changes, like these things are gonna be in that framework. Go to 50%, $50,000, go to 150% AMI.
As examples of what we're hoping to achieve. But if we're negotiating with the successful respondent and they're like experts in the field and they tell us, no, that's unrealistic, or that's not gonna hit the market you wanna hit, we're gonna be open to that feedback. And at that point is when we would come back to the commission.
In a contract or in a scope of work that would inform a contract.
Before that, we would come back to the commission, and say, this is what it's looking like, yes or no. And then, yeah, then it would get sealed with the contract approved, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So we definitely consider ourselves to be somewhat experts in this, but we're not the ultimate expert. I mean, it's the agencies that are doing this, that are giving the money out there, the lenders, the realtors, those are the people that need to finalize these things, but we wanted to have guardrails. Now, with that said, do we want to do a working group?
As far as the TM committee, what anyone online have thoughts about getting just a few folks together to, is it just this repayment option refinance that is talked about? Is there anything else?
So the stronger limit that was proposed in the presentation, I can't say I'm a big fan of because I think it's too limiting. It blocks too many out for people to be able to strengthen their families and their homes and stuff like that to make them build to lower their payment if they need to. If they had another baby, they need to look for a way to lower their house payment so they can new baby. Then that might be a reason. This might be a lot better for me. I do like your idea because I think maybe not in a big way, but in a small way, it does still move towards that strengthening of them to be able to build their equity, resiliency for future generations. I think it's in the right direction. So.
Well, and I mean, over time, we've had folks who received CHAP pay off early, not because they needed to, right? They weren't necessarily no longer owner occupied. They weren't selling. They weren't going to do a cash out refi. They just wanted to get the loan gone and to give that money back to pay it forward. Even before the shared appreciation was a thing, right? And so we had lots of people over the last 20 years get rid of the loan and refinance just because it made financial sense for them. So I think if you can now get rid of it, because the longer you own your home, the more likely it is to appreciate. And so that means you're going to give back more money to, like, now there's even more reason to get it gone. And then if you layer in, well, maybe it's not a 1-to-1 of the appreciation, maybe it's 0.8% of the appreciation. You know, like now if you provide a financial incentive and it makes sense for you personally, then you might elect to do it, which is what you want, is to have people opt in without harming them financially, like mandate. So I do think you'll see more early repayment if you look at that, but I agree with you. Like we have lots of people who refinance for lots of reasons. And it could be because the interest rates just went down and it makes sense, right? Like financially, this is more money in my pocket, I'm gonna do it. It could be we're struggling. And we know if we re-amortize over 30 years, our payment's gonna lower now. And I can really use that extra $150 a month for whatever. And so, I agree with you, Corey. I think offering it as an option and incentivizing it makes sense, but I worry about forcing it. Any other, so it sounds like we need a working group. Is that, sorry, I got off of my head. I apologize.
Do we want to see who wants to be on that working group?
Okay. Anybody online who would like to volunteer? Is there a limit to the working group because we can't have a quorum?
Sarah's got her hand up.
I'm sorry, Sarah. Sorry. Yep. Oh, I start. King, you want to come in?
I'll pass, thank you.
Oh, okay. All right, anybody who would like to, what's our limit on the working group? Can you tell us? We can't have more than.
More 7.
Oh,
I would, 6 or less.
6 or fewer. Okay, that's quite more than I thought, actually. Anybody want to volunteer to be on them?
Devonna, this is Sandy Flores. I would be happy to.
Thank you, Sandy. So I've got Commissioner Flores and Commissioner Flores. Makes it super easy. Anyone else?
I'll do it.
I'm sorry, was that Commissioner
Jackie.
Campbell? Yeah, okay. And then I didn't hear the other voice. I mean, it did, but I didn't catch it.
Commissioner Malazzo said he can do an email-based working group.
So, however that gets fleshed out, staff will coordinate the meeting or the emails or the, however that works. So thank you to those 4 folks. Were there any other questions on any other part of the proposal from, oh, Karen? Yeah.
So on that permanent affordability piece, can you just clarify, is it the home buyer that's making it the affordable, the restricted piece? So when they go to buy it, is that when that happens?
So our intent with this was to think outside of the box and to actually help with the supply of affordable housing in Flagstaff. Rather than to, be more like or actually, yeah. I can't even think today. And so the goal is to, at the time of, assistance, the amount of money that is going to be given in assistance is going to then be transferred to the city, as essentially as in the city's buying the land or a portion of the land. And then with that, we will do a deed restriction if it's a condo or a ground lease, if it's an actual single family home. And then that home will then come into the land trust program so that it will stay permanently affordable. So then whenever the homeowner goes to sell, it will be in our affordable home program, treated just like any other land trust unit. And that's why the dollar amount of assistance is so significant, because we need to incentivize people to utilize this because they're giving up appreciation. Exactly. So it's definitely a pilot program type situation. Just did a lot of research. Denver,
Yeah, City of Boulder is doing something similar and it was replicate that. Except theirs, they want to repay it after 15 years. And we really agree with that and how they were coming up with it because they are putting their home into the land trust program. So we figured it should not be repayable.
And will that change the buyer's qualifying requirements? Everything would be the same, just.
the assistance amount would be different, and then the home would go into the land trust.
So it's still 150% in my, those kinds of still.
Because currently the only way the city gets homes into the land trust program is through developer negotiations. And in our market these days, I mean, we're seeing a lot of rental development, less single family development. And when there is single family development, it's very few in the land trust, so.
But I know there's a lot of demand for it. I get clients all the time that want it, but there's nothing. So I think that's great. That way you're not forcing developers to try and do it. Services too.
Yeah, and then the reason between the minimum of the 100,000 and the maximum of the 200,000 is, what's the right dollar amount to incentivize someone? If for 50,000, they can just get CHAP, right? So then how much more will it take for someone to actually put their home into the land trust and not get that full equity out of it at the time of sale? And so that's why those dollar amounts are in there. Taking into account what we promised the voters in terms of how far the money would stretch. So that's why it has to have a cap, because we're still hoping to achieve those numbers. But thank you for your feedback. Appreciate it. And then we'll send the working group numbers and appointments, or do a doodle poll, figure out an appointment, and then back to you all at the end of September. That
Commissioner Moss,
Okay.
question.
Oh,
No, he, no.
okay. And then so, any other commissioners have comments or questions on this topic? Okay. Adriana, is there any public comments, or public folks to want to comment on this agenda item?
Yes, it looks like we have Adra Parafinick who would like to provide public comment on this item.
Excellent. So Adria, if you would like to make public comment, I'd just like to remind the public that you have 3 minutes to address the commission on this item.
All right, I'll consider myself on the clock. Okay, I've got one question and one comment. One on the one we got here on this permanent affordability. So once it becomes part of the city's affordable housing portfolio, is there like a yearly limit on how much it can appreciate when they do sell the property, say 10 years down the road? How does that work?
I can work to get that question answered, but if you want to make your comment too at the same time, then we'll just make sure we get all of what you have to say addressed.
Chair, we actually can't answer questions from the public, but we will note them.
Okay.
Okay, then I'll just give you my comment then. My thoughts about being able to refinance, because for the vast majority of people, their only asset is their home. And so you think like, someone goes to the hospital, you got a kid in college, to be able to take cash out seems like something that, you'd want someone to do, because it's the idea of helping somebody get a home is now they've built some equity, and then maybe they can, help their aging parents, help their young children, put on an extra room if their family's growing. And so I was wondering, is there any thought on allowing cash out, or is that always just going to be a hard no? I guess that's my comment then would be, I think it would be, you might want to have some sort of flexibility on that depending on the need of, whatever Flagstaff citizen has that. So that's my comments, and I think I'm under time, but I'm going to stop. Thanks.
You are under time. I so appreciate that. Thank you so much for those comments and the question. All right, so we're not able to respond to those.
We can follow up after the meeting though.
Okay, sounds lovely. So we'll make sure to follow up. Any other things do we need? So this was discussion. You had feedback. We don't need any kind of formal approval or anything moving forward. We're good with closing this agenda item. Thank you so much as I bumble my way through sharing the meeting, and I appreciate you all. Okay, the other thing that I have messed up is that I failed to do item number 4 on our agenda, which is public comment. So let me read that real quick and open it up to public comment as well. So at this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject matter within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time the item is heard. Adriana, do we have anyone for public comment today?
Some members of the public, but no Cs or Qs in the chat.
Okay, last call for any Cs or Qs from public participants who want to address the commission on items not on today's agenda. Excellent. Thank you. And I apologize once again for missing that and not knowing how to follow the numbers. All right, so then we're going to move on to item number 7, general business. Item 7A is an overview of the 18-month report for the 10-year housing plan. It's an informational item only, and I believe I'm turning it over to Adriana.
Yes.
Thanks.
Right. Good afternoon, Housing Commissioners. I'm Adriana Fisher, your Housing Program Manager for the Housing Section, and your commission liaison, which is why you probably all know me at this point. Today, I'm here to give you an overview of the 18-month report for the 10-year housing plan. Please refer to your agenda packet for the full copy of the report.
Sorry, everybody online, we're having technical difficulties going to the next slide.
Yeah, screen share. Bear with us.
For the record, we come in here an hour before every meeting to make sure the video works good. Right.
I'm sure. Fine. Yeah. Like I should print it.
No,
Oh, okay.
I haven't printed it.
Oh, nope, I'm actually good. I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. Once I actually get to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Next one. All right. Thank you for your patience through all the technology issues today. Today, we will begin with a brief overview of the 10-year housing plan before delving into the 18-month report. To keep things on schedule, as Stefana said earlier, please hold your questions and comments until the end. That's a third slide. The 10-year housing plan was adopted in 2022 following a citizen's petition, and city council's declared housing emergency in 2020. The plan's vision is to create a vibrant and more livable community through increased housing options for residents at all income levels and family sizes. The plan consists of a single overarching goal, which is to reduce the current affordable housing need in our community by half over the next 10 years. The goal is supported by two elements, which will allow us to impact at least 6,000 low to moderate income residents by creating units and providing housing subsidies, and increase the overall supply of all housing types by creating or preserving 7,976 housing units by 2031, with at least 10% being affordable. 13 policy initiatives and 58 comprehensive strategies support the overarching goal and elements. Each year, housing staff will present to you and council annual implementation plans in the spring, detailing the strategy selected for the upcoming year. We will then provide you both with presentations on annual reports in the late summer to review the progress made on the preceding plan. Today, I will update you on the progress achieved from January 2023 through June 2024.
It's still showing. It's not sharing. Since it's a PowerPoint, I suggested saving a PDF. Converting the file to a PDF and making it share. I'm sorry, guys, the PDF in here.
Keep going. We're having technology issues still, but I'll just keep going. So I've highlighted the 18-month report captures 18 months worth of work by city staff, collaborators, and community partners, and it corresponds to the 18-month implementation plan. The report details housing market conditions for the reporting period and provides highlights of key achievements. It also offers progress since the plan's inception and lists both completed and ongoing strategies. Additionally, the report reviews existing housing resources and addresses relevant community and legislative efforts. So I'd like to extend a special thanks to Chair McLaughlin, who I'm convinced never sleeps, and her team at Housing Solutions for their work. This would make a lot more sense if I had a PowerPoint.
It's like,
Yes, is that like for their work on the 2023 Affordable Housing Needs Assessment. We relied heavily on this document to evaluate housing market conditions for the reporting period. Current housing market conditions help us determine which strategies to pursue each year and guide staff and collaborators on how to implement these strategies. Fortunately, the plan allows for flexibility in strategy implementation. There we go. Okay, now you guys can see what I'm talking about. Some of the things highlighted from the needs assessment on the 18-month report were some of the things that we as a commission have been discussing in depth. In 2023, 38.9% of Flagstaff households with payments were considered housing cost burdened, affecting a little over 28,000 residents. This means these households spend more than 30% of their gross income on housing expenses. Between 2013 and 2023, Flagstaff's area median income increased by 46.5%, while the median home sales price surged to over 136% to $625,000. The average family of four can still only afford a home priced up to $311,000. In the same period, the fair market rate for a two-bedroom unit rose by 51.5% to $1,863 per month. Remember, this is fair market rent, which still remains unaffordable for a single parent with 2 children. In Flagstaff, a typical family of 4, 2 adults and 2 children, was estimated to spend an additional $824 on a similar housing type compared to Phoenix. The report found that Flagstaff's housing costs were 34.8% above the national average, and the overall cost of living was 14.1% higher than the national average. Clearly, there's still a substantial need for affordable housing across all income levels and household sizes. Right. My animations are not going to work either, so you guys are going to have to suffer a little bit. On this slide, we will shift to the positive aspects of the report. City staff and collaborators remain dedicated to advancing our community goals. From January 2023 through June 2024, 293 housing subsidies were provided to Flagstaff residents in need. Additionally, a total of 729 units were built, with 16.6% of those, remember, a minimum is 10%, being affordable. I'm thrilled to share with you the overall progress since the adoption of the 10-year housing plan in February of 2022. So far, 444 residents have benefited from new units or housing subsidies. 1,216 units have been built, with 159 of those, about 13%, still higher than our minimum, being affordable. An additional 430 affordable units were committed by developers, though this number may change as commitments and agreements are updated. You can view the graphic on your screen anytime on the 10-year housing plan webpage. The link is on your screen, and you should be able to click on it in your agenda packet. It's updated quarterly in January, April, July, and October to keep our stakeholders informed about our progress toward our goals and supporting elements. I had an animation too. The current housing emergency in Flagstaff has deep roots with no single root cause. The 13 policy initiatives and 58 strategies provide a foundational framework for establishing housing programs, prioritizing staff work, and allocating necessary funding for implementation. As we discussed in May, due to the subjective nature of percentages, staff decided to change strategy statuses to completed, in progress, and not started. On the next slide, we'll review 12 strategies, 10 of which have been completed. We'll delve into these details, though please note that the descriptions may be a bit lengthy. We're proud of our progress so far, having completed many strategies quickly. With 7.5 years remaining and 48 strategies left to finish, we're on track to meet our goals. And I was not kidding about the lengthy. The following 8 strategies, including the 4 on your screen, have been completed as detailed on the following slides from a previous implementation plan. Create 3.1, I'm not reading word for word, just so you know, required presenting a bond measure to council and the community for consideration. Not only was a bond measure presented to city council, it was approved by Flagstaff voters in November of 2022, securing $20 million to expand rental and homeownership opportunities. Create 4.3 allowed staff to explore adding affordable housing as an allowed use in the public facilities zone. You will recall Tiffany Antal, zoning code manager, who's online now for a little bit of backup, was here late last year to discuss this amendment. Thanks to her hard work and council's adoption of a resolution and ordinance, the strategy was completed on March 19 of this year. Create 5.1 called for hiring an independent consultant to review city codes and processes for cost-saving opportunities. Council approved a funding request by staff through the fiscal year 22-23 city budget cycle, and Cascadia Partners was hired. Completion of what we call the last cap, the land availability and suitability study and code analysis project, what a mouthful, is anticipated to be wrapped up by fiscal year 2025. Create 5.3, focus on establishing a dedicated team within planning and development services for affordable housing projects. This was achieved by adding a housing planner, Jess, and her role in clarifying the position's responsibilities within the interdepartmental staff, also known as IDS, review process. The housing planner, working with the housing planning manager, Jen, help facilitate new residential development. Additionally, the IDS process itself was recently rechartered to improve communication and streamline project reviews, leading to better outcomes for all development applications. Connect 1.2, aim to hire a housing navigator or advocate to assist landlords and those facing housing challenges. This was accomplished by establishing and hiring a housing navigator with the position approved as a permanent budget item starting July 1. I'm not sure if that's what the actual housing navigator looks like, but I know he's a guy. Connect 2.3, focus on enhancing the diversity of the Housing Commission and Housing Authority Board. After considering various approaches, the City of Flagstaff's legal team, city clerk's office, and housing staff completed the strategy with the following actions. We added a question to the boards and commissions application about how applicants contribute to the city's commitment to diversity. I'm sure Karen and Devonna saw that when they reapplied. Template language was incorporated into staff summaries to encourage council to consider diversity when making appointments. Boards and commissions liaisons were provided with a marketing guide to improve outreach to diverse populations. And the city clerk's office reminds council members to consider diversity when reviewing applications and making appointments. Protect 2.1 involved creating and maintaining an affordable housing impact statement. The strategy was fulfilled by complying with ARS 9-462.01, requiring council to consider housing impact statements with zoning ordinance and text amendments to determine how the proposed amendment might affect housing construction costs. Housing staff are also now tracking demolished housing units. Since the inception of the 10-year housing plan, 85 units have been demolished in Flagstaff, but they have been replaced with 204 units, advancing toward that goal of 7,976 units. Protect 3.2, required updating the housing limited English proficiency plan. That's also a mouthful. The housing section's original language access plan was revised in September of last year to include new data and reduce barriers to those with limited English proficiency, and the Housing Authority's LAP language access plan is also regularly updated. All right, we're going to move on to these next two strategies. The two strategies on your screen now were implemented due to emerging opportunities, though they were not a part of a previous implementation plan. Create 4.1 aim to update the planned residential development standards to ease infill development and increase flexibility in development options. This was completed by adopting zoning code updates through a resolution and an ordinance back in December of 2023. Protect 3.4 sought to support local social service networks in establishing a home share program, inclusive of features like peer support and conflict resolution. After extensive research and analysis, the strategy was completed by launching a home sharing resources webpage on the city's website to provide information on home sharing platforms, rental resources, and links to the Fair Housing webpage. Right. The following two strategies from past implementation plans are still in progress. Progress 2.4 involves a public outreach campaign to highlight the importance of affordable housing and build support while addressing opposition. Since 2022, housing staff have utilized various methods of outreach, such as radio, social media, and local newspaper, to name some. Staff continue to actively seek and leverage community outreach opportunities to advance this strategy in the coming year. Additionally, the housing section anticipates a rebranding following the City of Flagstaff's logo update in the spring of 2025. Reserve 2.2 focuses on acquiring and rehabilitating existing properties for affordable housing when financially feasible. This strategy is largely dependent on partnerships with private developers. Prop 442 provides $3 million of funding for this purpose. A framework for this program is planned to be completed by fiscal year 2025. Acknowledging existing housing resources and community efforts is essential. During the reporting period, the housing section and community partners have actively managed programs supporting residents across all income levels. Programs administered by the Housing Authority include Clark Homes Housing Choice Vouchers and the Low Income Public Housing, providing a total of 345 units and over 500 vouchers. Some of the programs offered by the community housing program side of the house include affordable homes, down payment assistance, and incentives for developers, to name a few. Recently, housing staff who manage these programs administered over $6 million from various funding sources, including local bond funds, state funds, and federal funds, each with different administrative requirements. The legislative efforts section of the report touches on and acknowledges how legislative actions impact a municipality's ability to enact significant changes. As noted, major barriers to affordable housing are embedded in state and federal policies. Sarah Dar, our housing director, putting you on the spot, Sarah, emphasizes at least every election year that city staff cannot advocate. We can only educate. Therefore, staff depend on city council and organizations like the Arizona Housing Coalition to champion legislation that addresses housing affordability issues locally, statewide, and nationally. I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude to you, commissioners, for your dedicated efforts on the invaluable programs that have advanced our 10-year housing plan. I want to extend my gratitude to our city colleagues whose collaboration has been instrumental in developing our strategies, as well as to all our internal and external partners. Your expertise is deeply appreciated. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions with backup you may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Adriana. Is there anyone who is a commissioner who has a comment or a question? If you are online, if you want to put a C or a Q in the chat or here in person. Give just a moment for folks online. Thank you. Well, hearing no comments or questions, I'll just thank you, Adriana, for giving us an update on where we're at with the plan. It's nice to see the progress and impacts that we're making. Oh, so sorry. I apologize.
No worries. I just wanted to mention that this is going to council September 24th. If you'd like to be there, And thank you, Tiffany and Jess and Jen for being here and supporting any questions.
Thank you for that update. I appreciate knowing it's going to be helpful. Alrighty, item number 7B is accessory dwelling unit ADU model plans pilot program. This is information item only with an opportunity to provide comments. Staff is also seeking a member of the Housing Commission to volunteer to serve on an ADU model plan selection committee and provide programmatic advice as part of the process to solicit ADU pre-approved model plans. I will be turning it over to, sorry, I don't know,
Genevieve here for you.
all right, to Jennifer.
So again, thank you. Take it away from the McLaughlin. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Presentation. Okay. Good afternoon, Housing Commission members, housing staff, folks who are online as well. My name is Genevieve Peartree. I'm a resilience analyst with the Flagstaff Sustainability Office. And I'm here to present on the accessory dwelling unit or ADU model plans pilot program. And we'll take questions and comments at the end, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this program. Mine is not advancing either.
It's this round. Is it a PowerPoint or
But I did preemptively save in PDFs just in case, so.
that's what you?
I'm gonna pull up the PDF, hold on, that's super weird. That all of us, the PowerPoint's not working. So, yeah, you can see, is there a way to do presentation mode in the PDF? Like get rid of the orders?
To view. Three, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I will start just by giving a little background on ADUs. I feel like folks know what they are, but just so we're all on the same page, and then our adopted housing and climate goals and how they relate to ADUs and how ADUs are an important part of multiple housing and climate goals adopted by the city of Flagstaff. I'll also give some background research that we've done in the community as well as talking to other cities. I'll provide a little bit of an overview of another city in Arizona who's created an ADU model plan library, which is the city of Tucson. And then we'll talk about some of the things that still need to be worked out, and then next steps, and I'll take questions and comments. Oh no.
It's like presentation.
Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm just gonna go down. Yeah, let's go.
There.
Okay, there we go. I'm just gonna stay in this mode. Okay, so accessory dwelling units or ADUs, they're a second and complete living space on a property that already has a single family home. There's a lot of benefits to them, and they're built in existing neighborhoods, often with existing infrastructure and transportation networks. They can provide supplemental income to owners. They also ideally are smaller because they're more affordable. So they're more affordable because they're smaller, both for rent and utilities. And they also offer opportunities for the potential for improved social connections for residents. They can support multi-generational housing. They can have multiple families or households living on the same lot in a way that you couldn't necessarily do or be harder without the ADU. So our zoning code has 3 different types of ADUs. So we have attached, which are the ones right here, interior here, and then detached. So attached are basically an addition that you stick on the side of the house. An interior one is like converting an attic or basement or some room inside of the house into a second complete unit. And then detached are those little casitas. I think I've heard them called granny flats, mother-in-law suites, etc. Lots of names. So that's what we're focusing on here, just because that makes the most sense for plans. You can't develop pre-approved building plans for these other types. They have to be custom plans. So we're focusing on detached ADUs. So I mentioned that ADUs are important in both the 10-year housing plan as well as the carbon neutrality plan. So in the 10-year housing plan, there's a couple goals that relate to ADUs. So one of them is making pre-approved standard plans available to property owners to reduce planning and review costs. this isn't specific to ADUs, but we can do this with ADUs as well as single family homes and other types of development. So we're focusing on ADUs today. The second one is constructing and promoting net zero ready affordable housing when funding is available and encouraging developers to do the same. So ADUs are a really great opportunity to develop more energy efficient housing, electric housing for folks to have reduced utility bills in the long term. And then another one, which we're not focusing on today, but it's just something else going on and it's related to ADUs in the plan, is evaluating the ADU zoning code with the goal of increasing supply. So that's just another ADU goal, a little bit separate from what we're doing today, but still relevant. And then in the carbon neutrality plan, there's a couple of goals related to decreasing dependence on cars, that's DV, and part of that is incorporating flexibility and appropriate density into residential neighborhoods, including accessory dwelling units as well as other housing options to provide diverse, maintainable housing opportunities, vibrant neighborhoods, and decrease travel distances. So increasing the supply of housing in existing neighborhoods that are close to infrastructure, jobs, places people want to go. As well as there is a specific goal that's actually encouraging the rapid development of carbon neutral ADUs to increase the housing stock. And there's a housing for all goal in the carbon neutrality plan that says to incentivize the creation of affordable units through various programs and mechanisms. That mentioned ADUs are smaller, so they tend to be more. Oops. Went the wrong way. That's weird. All right. Okay. So just a little bit of background. So we, in city staff, we started talking about this a little while ago. It's really a collaboration between sustainability, housing, planning, building, and other departments in the city of Flagstaff. And one thing we wanted to do before we move forward was get more data from the community about what are the barriers to building ADUs. What can we do? What can we start with to help folks develop more ADUs? So we did a community survey on the Flagstaff Community Forum that was open for 2 months. We got about 350 responses from folks across the city of Flagstaff, which was really cool. We also did a targeted survey for design and construction professionals who submitted ADU plans or who we know have that expertise working in Flagstaff. We did in-depth interviews with a handful of these folks to really get into details like what are their thoughts about ADU model plans, how would this work, et cetera, et cetera. And then did a bunch of online research looking at other cities and jurisdictions who've adopted ADU model plans libraries, both in Arizona and outside of Arizona, as well as talking with some of those cities just to learn what worked, what didn't work, what lessons learned, etc. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Every time I push that arrow, it goes. There we go. Okay, so one of the things we found in the survey was that there are a bunch of barriers to building an ADU in Flagstaff. Some of them are related to city codes, but there are a bunch that actually having pre-approved ADU model plans could help alleviate. There's also other barriers that are kind of outside of that, mostly outside of the city's control, so not really focusing on those right now. But some of the barriers that pre-approved ADU building plans could help alleviate is reducing the cost of designing plans. So basically the planners already paid to develop these plans and then just reusing these plans that have already been developed. It also helps people find someone to help them design or find a designer to work with to make sure those plans work on their lot. So make that easier. Also make the process to get a building permit a lot easier and hopefully cheaper as well. So reducing the cost and time. So that's kind of what the goal of the ADU model plans library would be. I'll talk about that in a little more detail. I also won't go into this in too much detail, but these are some of the findings from the survey that we did on the Flagstaff Community Forum and found that earning additional rental income was a very common reason to build an ADU, and a lot of people who responded who own ADUs say that the rental income really helps cover their ownership costs. We also found that the same ADU isn't always short-term or long-term or medium-term rental. Rotate depending on the needs of the homeowners and their tenants. And that many folks build ADUs to increase the housing supply, as well as provide additional living space for themselves or family and friends to live or visit. Also among respondents, 50% of single family homeowners who didn't have an ADU said that they would be interested in one, but only 14% said they were likely to build one in the next 1 to 3 years. So how can we make that easier? Maybe move some of those folks who are on the fence into the idea that they will build one. And there was a strong preference for that detached ADU. And then 50% of those folks said that model plans they thought would help them make it easier to build an ADU.
And they also talked about wanting different types of plan sets to meet diverse needs of homeowners as well as people who live in ADUs. And then for the design professional survey findings, there definitely was support for model plans as long as the designer can retain ownership of their plans and charge a reasonable fee to use them. So a lot cheaper than if they were developing custom plans, but those fees would cover the cost of the designer working with the client to just making sure that that ADU fits on the lot, that it's doable, as well as helping them navigate that process of going through the building permit review and approval. They also talked about ADUs being a good candidate for really energy efficient all electric construction features just because of their small size, as well as building code requirements that make it a lot harder to fit everything in if you have gas. So a lot easier to fit everything if you don't have natural gas plumbed to the ADUs. And then they talked about needing some pre-approved options within these plans, just to again make it easier for folks to find something that works for them. So based on all of this data, we decided to move forward with creating an ADU model plans program. And again, seeing that a lot of cities have done this, so let's try this out in Flagstaff and see how it goes. So we have kind of 4 high overarching goals. One is to create an ADU model plans library, to host a growing inventory of pre-approved all electric and energy efficient ADU model plans, as well as increase awareness of ADUs and their benefit to Flagstaff community, and in general increase the amount of ADUs in Flagstaff by simplifying the process and reducing costs of design for ADUs, and make it easier for interested homeowners to connect with design professionals and also just learning more about ADUs. In general, the survey did identify also need for more information about what an ADU is and how to start that process. So I mentioned some benefits. So for the community, there's a bunch of benefits that pre-approved ADU model plans can have. One of them are lower and more predictable design costs, as well as lower building permit review fees. Because basically, the plans have already gone through review to make sure they comply with building code. When they come back in, you just have to make sure they comply with zoning code and that the preferred design actually fits on the lot. So it's a lot less downtime. It should be able to go through the process a lot quicker, as well as reduce those costs to the public. Also, the public can preview plans for free. So you go online, find all these plans, look at renderings and floor plans. This design looks cool. They don't have to commit or pay anything in order to get a sense of what they'd be getting with these plans. And so then making it easier to find the designer who did those plans. You can have plans that you can be required to meet certain design standards that we're looking for. And ultimately, again, the goal is to make it easier and cheaper to build an ADU in Flagstaff, leading to an increase in supply in ADUs. And then for designers, this can benefit designers as well. So that's draftspeople, architects, and other design and construction professionals in Flagstaff, in Northern Arizona. So they can benefit from reusing plans in different locations. They have one large effort to design these plans, and then later they just have to go back and make sure they work in different places. They can retain ownership of their plans, and they're all compensated when plans are used, but again, a lot less than custom plans. Their fees that I mentioned was covered, what's necessary to basically walk the client through the site select, like making sure we're on the site as well as the building permit process. Then a lower time commitment, so they can create plans, work with more clients potentially to allow designers to have more clients. So definitely potential for community as well as design professional benefits. And then I mentioned there's model plans, libraries, and other places. This is just a small selection. There are quite a few. We'll focus on Tucson because they're in Arizona. So these are Tucson held a design contest in late 2023. So about a year ago, they're in the process of developing their model plan library now. But basically what people do is they go on this website, they can look at these, the designs, they can click on the design details button right here. It takes them to some more renderings and floor plans of the models. Then they can say, "Ooh, this is really cool. Like I'm interested in building this in my house." And they contact the designer and they work with the designer to get access to those plans and make sure that they can work on the site. So we've done a lot of research, a lot of background work. We're really in the process now to really get this program going. So right now I presented to the Sustainability Commission last week. Talking to you today, obviously on the Housing Commission, going to Planning and Zoning in September, and then City Council in October. So kind of just getting some feedback from folks. And as part of that, getting feedback from city staff and design professionals on finalizing requirements, selection criteria, getting a selection committee together to help select plans in the future. We're kind of in phases 1 and 2 right now. And then phase 3 is inviting design and construction professionals to submit detached ADU designs through a request for informal proposals. selecting designs. The selection committee, again, made up of external partners and city staff would select those designs. Winners would then be selected and notified, and they would submit full construction plans. They would go through that building permit review process, be pre-approved, then it would be uploaded into the plans library like what I showed in Tucson. Then the public can view and select plans. Those work with the designer to submit a building permit, use the plans, and then we would evaluate the program. As I mentioned, this is a pilot, so we're just going to try it out. We're hopeful that we've done enough research that we can do a good job, but again, we can always learn and always improve if we do this again. So I mentioned some things we have to figure out. We have to finalize design criteria, categories, what we're looking for. There is the intent to provide awards for winning designs, so figuring out that amount, the number of designs we're looking for, search schedules, some of those logistics things. And then opening up that RFIP, so figuring out the process to open up the RFIP, and then how we're going to select design, kind of just those nuts and bolts. Figuring out our internal building plan review process, just some logistics on the model plans library and how to display it again program evaluation. So that's something that would love to have someone from the Housing Commission be involved in to get your feedback on this and just help make this program be as successful as possible. So if anyone's interested, I would love to hear from you, and we're going to be getting started pretty soon. So yeah, I'll take any feedback we can get. So if anyone has comments or questions or is interested in volunteering, I'd be happy to take your feedback now. And thank you again for having me at the Housing Commission.
Lovely. Thank you, Genevieve, for the presentation. Is there anybody who has a comment or a question? Any commissioner? Commissioner Denham. All right, Commissioner Denham, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I just want to express interest in joining the selection committee. So I'm not a design or construction professional, but I'm pretty close to the topic because of the work I did this year on the Arizona Casita Act that was signed into law by Governor Hobbs. And as part of that work, I developed a lot of connections with folks from the Casita Coalition and also people that are working with the city of Phoenix on their pre-approved plan. They're actually going through a very similar exercise to what we're doing here right now. So yeah, just want to express that interest.
Thank you, Commissioner Denham. Is there anyone else who has a comment, question, or wants to express an interest in serving on the committee, the ADU model plan selection committee? All right.
Yeah, this is Eric.
Sorry, go ahead.
Here. I would also volunteer to help with that committee as well. I've got a construction management background, and I just have a lot of interest in ADUs and being a realtor. I feel like this is something I can utilize with my clients as well.
We can't do volunteers.
Thank you. That would be perfect.
Yeah. Thank you both. I'll be in touch most likely later this week or early next week.
Awesome. All righty. Thank you so much, Commission volunteers. And we will move on then to item number 8 on our agenda, which is informational items to and from the Commission members, staff, and future agenda item requests. Item 8A is an update from our Housing Authority liaison. Commissioner Milazzo, do you have any updates for us?
Commissioner Milazzo has logged off, and as also Housing Authority, I will share that we traditionally cancel the summer meeting, just as we do with the Housing Commission. Our next meeting will take place in 3 weeks. So we'll have an update next month. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Dar. Okay, item 8B then is update from housing commissioners and other informational items. Do any housing commissioners have any information they'd like to share with the commission? I will just relay that I was looking online, not expecting to find anything, but it looks like HUD has put out fiscal year 25 era rental guidelines, fair market rents. Sorry, that's what they're called, fair market rents. So those, I didn't think so until the end of this month, but they're out now in case anyone's interested in finding fair market rent data up to date HUD prices. So
I know you'll all be surprised to hear that the fair market rents increased from last year. So it was 5.6% increase for a 3-bedroom. That's what I was looking at from 2021. So anyway, that data's out there. Anyone else? Okay, I'll turn it over then to housing staff for any updates from our housing staff. Christina?
Yes, we will email you updates because Christine had some things to share and we share with the meeting. So we will email you. Oh, she's on.
Oh, she is.
I think she's multitasking, so I'm not going to put her on the spot right now. We'll email them to you. We'll email updates. And then I know Sarah wanted to. There she is. Say a few words.
Awesome.
Here I am. Hello, Housing Commission, Sarah Dar, Housing Director. I just wanted to take a moment and recognize one of the members of the Housing Commission. Last week was the Arizona Department of Housing and Arizona Housing Coalition annual conference we were in the Fort McDowell area. It is always an incredibly useful conference for us to go to. We were able to get a lot of business done. But it is also the annual time when the Arizona Department of Housing Hero Awards are awarded. And one of you members of our Housing Commission, Ms. Ross Schaefer, was recognized as the Advocate of the Year in her role as Executive Director for Flagstaff Shelter Services for her service to our community and the most vulnerable within it as well. And so if we just want to take a moment and recognize this accomplishment of one of our housing commissioners, that would be great. And thank you, Ross, for all you do for our community and vulnerable members within it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, for sharing that information with the commissioners. It was awesome to be there, and congratulations again, Ross, for the recognition for all the work that you do. Any other updates from staff or anyone else prior to item number 9? All right, well, with that being said, we are done early today. I appreciate you all so much in your impact, your feedback, and your dedication. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and we will officially adjourn at 2:47 p.m. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Why are you sorry? You can start.